Greetings, everyone. My name is Stephen Neely, and I am your co-host for the Virtual Dalcroze Meetup. Tonight is meetup number 70. Can you believe we've done 70 hours of these things? And I have to say, I haven't gotten, I'm not at all tired of it. It's a real joy to meet with whoever is able to come, and it's been wonderful to maintain our international community. Tonight, we have two great presenters, good friends of the VDM. And so we got lots to talk about. I'll introduce my dear friend and co-host, Veronica Bileski. Um, Veronica, how's your week been?
It's been good. Are we doing breakout intros or are we
Yeah,
doing
why
the
don't we
same
do that?
show?
We normally, when we have a bigger crowd, we go into breakout rooms, but I think here we always say, what's our name, where are we living, and who do we teach? And so I'm Stephen Neely. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I mostly teach university students, and the young ones. The first year undergraduate are my first and second year students are my main crowd. So 18 to 21-year-olds that's my bread and butter. I'll hand it over to Veronica.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I live in the Boston area in the United States, and I teach group classes for kids ages 3 to 14, and I also teach private flute and piano lessons to kids and adults. Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and I'm usually in Berkeley, California. Right now, I'm in Seattle on vacation, and I teach piano, and I just sort of incorporate what I know of Dalcroze into it, and they love it when they get to feel their pieces rather than think about them. Yeah.
Ting, you want to
Oh,
introduce?
sorry.
Oh, there you go. Ting.
My name is Quanting Cheng. 15 years ago, I got here from Taiwan, and now I am in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, teaching K-5 public school.
Very good. Ting, you want to nominate someone?
I guess Kai.
Hello, everybody. I'm from Beijing. I teach in the Central Conservatory of Music, and my job is mainly, teaching the music education major, bachelor student and undergraduate students. Also, I have a selective course for my conservatory, which is one of the best in the Asian area, for those instrumentalists. And also, I did many teacher trainings in China, so my focus is really on teacher training in the Dalcroze method. I'm the first Dalcroze teacher in China. Yeah.
Kai's very cool. We're super excited to have him back. Graham.
Hey everyone, I'm Graham. I live in the Cleveland area and I mostly teach. Yeah, Lauren, I mostly teach in a lot of elementary school age kids, but I have a few high school classes. And yeah, I love what I do. Passing it to Lauren.
I missed the instructions. That's
Where do we
not
say
fair.
your name, where are you from, and who do you teach?
All right, Lauren. Sorry for the guitar upstairs. I'm from Kentucky originally. I don't know if y'all knew that.
I don't
From
think I knew that.
Kentucky. I live in Ohio. I teach all ages and including teacher training and 4-year-olds and college students. And I'm losing my voice because it's finals week next week and all of that. Yeah.
Very good. We're so happy to see you, Lauren. Thanks for joining us. I was just saying it's finals week now at CMU. So I'm
Early. So
yeah,
early.
yeah. On the whole university, finals take up 2 weeks, but for me and most of my students, we're almost all done by this time next week. So today was my first day of 5 days of exams. So, well, it's great to see everyone. If you haven't seen in the chat, there is the agenda for tonight. We want to remind you to click on the calendar when you get to the Virtual Dalcroze meetup website, virtualdalcroze.org. And on the calendar, you can subscribe to the calendar, and the calendar will tell you not only when are all the meetups and when are the master classes and short courses, but it'll convert them into your time zone. And so we encourage everybody to subscribe to the calendar so you can kind of know what's going on and it'll pop up. We also hope that you might consider joining the mailing list. And we've been going for about 4 years now, which is crazy. And the mailing list is kind of mighty. There's a lot of people from all around the world, every continent. We've got people who have subscribed to just kind of know the goings on. And so whether everybody shows up to the live meetup or not, we know a lot of people are watching the meetups in their own timing after the fact. This is a late night for Veronica and me. This is the end of our day for sure. But we know that for Kai, it's in the morning, and for other people around the world, it's just, they're different convenient times. So we try to mix it up so that everybody can hopefully make it to at least half of them if they really wanted to. Coming up this spring and early summer or late spring, we have 2 master classes. We had scheduled with Fumiko Hondo Bauer, our good friend who lives in New York, who her early Dalcroze training was between Carnegie Mellon and Japan, and she lives in New York now. She's scheduled to do a masterclass with us, but had a conflict that popped up at the last minute, and so we needed to postpone that. So everybody stay tuned. We're gonna reschedule as soon as Fumiko's knows her schedule a little bit better. And for everybody who already registered, you'll be credited forward. And if you need a refund, just let us know and we'll refund it to you. But otherwise, we're hoping that everybody will just come to whenever the reschedule comes, which will be sometime in the next couple weeks. And then we have one other masterclass, which we're also really excited about, which is Temay Janai Devoe, who is a young teacher from Switzerland. She'll be with us on June 15 or 16, depending on where you are in the world. And Temay is just super dynamic. I had the best time with her in Switzerland this last summer. And as soon as I saw her teaching, we thought, oh, we got to get her to come. So she's going to come do her first VDM attendance, and we're really excited to work with her. So if you haven't registered for either of those, consider. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Fumiko's class is going to be geared toward the little littles, ages 1 day to about age 4. And so we've had some real requests for more content with people working with the little littles, and we're really excited that Fumiko was available and willing to come and share with us some of the work that she does. She's an absolutely tremendous musician. I'm really excited to feature her here. And with those statements, I'm going to hand it to Veronica. You want to?
I just have one more announcement question for anyone here or anyone watching the video after. We have tried to keep the meetups at a regular time. Like for us, it's usually Monday afternoons or Tuesday nights. And I've heard from some people, they're like, oh my gosh, I can never come on Monday afternoons, or, oh, you tried so hard to make it work for me. I'm over there in Asia and Australia, but I can never make the Wednesday morning time because I'm teaching. So if you want to come and we keep scheduling things at times that never work for you, it would be really helpful to know. Like, we probably can't change the whole schedule around, but maybe we can do a sprinkling of a few others. So just email us, virtualdalcroze@gmail.com. I scheduled a post on our Facebook page also with the same question. So if that pops up in your feed and you want to answer there, we care about making this work for you all. So our presenters, we've given them a question to think about when they were in the early stages of their teaching. What were the challenges and what helped them overcome those challenges? And so we're hoping to hear from both Kai and Graham for about 5 minutes. And then after they've both shared, I hope we'll have a really great discussion about that. So let's see, Graham, I put you first. And I'll give you a 1-minute warning. And then we'll go to Kai. I'll also give you a 1-minute warning. And then
all right. Thank you so much. And I love the question. I've been really reflecting on it often. And I wish I had like one true epiphany moment, but I think it's lots of little things that kind of added up into a huge change for me. I think in general, I had a misconception that music education was in this straight line, that everyone had to start like learning the notes and then like, oh, you put it in a measure. Oh, isn't this all? And like that it was one track fit all. And that is a horrible approach, especially for someone like, Lauren and I, where we teach so many different types of kids. We have some outreach opportunities at schools that don't have a music program at all. And I thought I reflect about a lot of my missteps early on, was thinking that they just needed to catch up. They're all the way down here and they needed to progress. But I needed to abandon that idea, especially the way music manifests for them. It's going to be different than a hoity-toity family that only listens to classical music. Like that, it's just gonna, you can't speak that language with that. And I think the other the biggest one was feeling okay with abandoning your lesson plan. And I felt when I first started teaching, like I was right out of my undergrad and just kind of gigging and finding classes to teach and really enjoying it. But I felt extremely bound to what I had planned. And I had, like a set of bullet points. And if I did not say every bullet point, I would find myself like looping back and like making sure I said this, like every piece was so critical. And the stricter I followed those bullet points, the more I lost control of the class. And so I started easing up off of this method, and it started like really trying to teach the students in front of me. And if I noticed they would latch onto something, I would like elaborate. And I just started becoming more and more flexible with just how the class was going. And so I think those kind of two ideas in tandem, kind of meeting the students where they're at, not following my lesson plan too closely, over like 5 or 6 years, that like my entire teaching approach did like a 180. And I think that was really the biggest takeaway, is just being super flexible and just exploring music, what music means to them, as best I can. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah, so I would like to share something about the general value or the philosophy or some general problems I began to teach, and also some technical issues I have been figuring out in the past 10 years. Actually, I know Dark Rose pretty late. Before my dream is become a jazz piano player. I think Stephen knows that very clearly. I share with him about my dream, So I had those spontaneous things in my musicality. I mean, playing. So for me, it's not a problem. But as I'm the first Dark Rose teacher in China, I went back in 2012, and when I began to teach, there are many problems, because people know nothing about Dark Rose here. So and also it's not just a problem about knowing Dark Rose, it's how to get everything embodiment, so that's a general thing. So for me, during the years, I think for me, I would like to talk about some general values or philosophies, if I say in that way. First is that when we begin to teach, we have to be fearless, not afraid of making mistakes, because Dark Rose is not like Kodály or Orff, especially Kodály, because Dark Rose is a generative style of method. It's a dialogue, it's a conversational method. It's a method to stimulating others to do things. So I think we have to be, fearless to try different things. So let the tree grow, then we can start to trim it, and I try different kinds of ideas, I think that's very important. And also I think one of the things distracting me since the beginning, it's the balance between systematic playing and a spontaneous moment in the teaching. Because when I began to study Dark Rose, I was formatted in Geneva. So I didn't know the style in UK and States, because UK and States has a very long history of dark roads. And also English, helps us to get more accessible for me, because I learned French later. So so in the Geneva, I think the general value there is the people really try to encourage us to find our own way. So there are a lot of things they didn't tell us the answer. I think that was wonderful, So that means we have to figure out everything by ourselves. But of course, that makes people sometimes, a little bit overwhelming, especially when we begin to teach. We didn't know, are we still in the subject? Is this order sequence of the lesson good or not? So I spent years, try to figure it out. And later, I met Lisa Parker, and also, very importantly, I met Toru Sakai. And gradually, I began to have this map about to knowing the relationship between each subject. I think that's very important. Then we can try to be spontaneous, try to connect those subjects. I think that's something, we have to be really conscious when we begin to teach. And another thing is that we have to find the balance between expectations and real situations. Because when I teach in China, sometimes, I want to teach a lot. And, Lisa and Tula always tell me that, Kai, you cannot teach everything in the class. You have to always, make a balance between your expectation and the real situation. And also in China, I think one particular thing is that I think maybe in the States or in some other countries, the same situation, is that some people, they're used to learn things or get information from the teachers, but not trying to find the things by themselves. So if you're in that situations, consciously or unconsciously, you want to give them more instead of letting them trying things, But I think that's against the dark road's value. So when I teach here, I always try to say to myself, don't teach too much, but you have to give students chance to show them on the body. Sometimes it's difficult, because what they're showing is not good, but you cannot judge that because you need to give them the chance. I think that's a big thing we have to be conscious. And I would like to share also some technical tips. The first thing is I learned from Lisa Parker, because she visited my conservatory, I think twice or three times.
1 minute.
And immediately we'll become friends. And one thing she told me is that we have to pay attention when we play 3/4 and 6/8. Because very, very often when we play 3/4, we're gonna play things like 6/8, like a Tannery beat feel. So she gave me an idea to play the minuet style in 3/4 instead of waltz, because a lot of waltz, it's when it become faster, it's become like 6/8. And also one technical issue is keep the tempo steady. I think very important, practice slower tempo. And also for the reaction exercise, we need to practice the placement of signal deliberately, because that's always make us feel very tired during the teaching. Okay, we need to make sure to practice different placements. Okay, so I think micro and the macro and the micro, my suggestions. Yeah, that's done.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, Kai and Graham.
Well, there's
Thoughts,
all
comments?
kinds of stuff here that we would get going. I mean, we have actually a really nice amount of time this evening, and we have a whole bunch. I mean, this whole crowd is a pretty cool crowd of real teachers who all have some, I'm sure, have their own examples of challenges for getting started. So I wonder if we want to just ask, maybe the first question would be, does anybody else want to offer just a little bit of what were some of your sort of early challenges slash, bright ideas or things that fixed, once you finally figured it out? Does anybody have any nice stories of what it meant to be a young teacher trying to figure it out versus maybe some things you've learned along the way? Aaron's got a hand up.
Yeah, was reminded, Kylie, when you were describing the prospect of not trying to teach too much. I remember when I was training in Boston with Lisa Parker, I would come down to New York City to visit my friends, and I would always run up to 67th Street to find Cynthia Lilly and Ann Farber and see what they were doing. And they were teaching, in this amazing institution, this amazing school system, and I would like write down what they were doing, and they were teaching the first graders how to like figure out the 16th notes and the 8th notes. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to go back to Boston and deliver this content to my, children that haven't had any Dalcroze before, because I'm just training. And of course it like falls flat. And I was like, I can't just like copy what Ann Farber's doing. And it was really only until I spent a little more time watching more teachers, watching Sean Hartley, watching Johanna Kopp, and trying to take pieces one by one of what I saw. But of course, as you were saying, clarifying what are we trying to do? Like, what is the subject? What are we trying to see? What are you trying to what do you think the students are doing? How do you manage all of that? And it took a lot of time of, it's so fun to be a Dalcroze student. And it's so fun to imagine that all of your students will be you, but they're not. And you have to like create more space, as you were saying, this more flexibility to meet them where they are.
It's very good. Thank you, Aaron. Any other initial thoughts? I was thinking about just with that last statement of either don't teach too much or you can't teach at all, or that to me translated in my teaching as it took me a good long time. Actually, I think I still am working on this, the ability to trust the students. I think I oftentimes think, no, they're not going to get it. I have to tell them all the things, or I'm going to fill in all the little gaps, or show them all the nuance, or all the little bits. And it's wrong-headed in a bunch of ways, that instinct on my part. The main one that I think of is that, well, actually, I can't make anybody learn anything. And if I could just remind myself of that, that's not really what I'm doing in the room. I'm not actually making anybody learn anything. I'm just presenting the material. I'm trying to open doors. I'm trying to create an environment where they are able to learn, but they're not going to learn because I shoved it down them. They're going to learn because I created a space where learning was conducive. And there's so much trust that goes into that. The other way that I think about it sometimes is you're only ready to learn what you're ready to learn. Like, it doesn't matter that you happen to be in your 17th week of college when we're studying this, and so you're supposed to know it now, and there's going to be a test at the end of the week. Like, it's nice that the university came up with that calendar, but it actually has nothing to do with the individual. Each of us are on our own time frames, and some of us have an easier time, and what we were ready for happens to align with whatever the curriculum that we're maybe in front of. And some people have a much harder time because they're supposedly 18 and a half years old and they're supposed to be really good at a thing because everybody else is, but it's actually really artificial. And so when I am working with some of those students, I sometimes will pull them aside and I say, the university calendar is totally artificial. It's like really made up. Like, it has nothing to do with you. And actually the only kind of real learning that we can do together is it just has to be in your timing. And so what I really think is a pure Dalcrozian kind of attention, which Kai and Graham both made mention of, is this idea of being present. and all we can do is be here with the students where they are, even if we have external forces trying to push everybody toward final exams, as is some of our plight right now. Veronica, you had a hand up.
I moved out to Colorado for a year to shadow Emma Shubin and teach with her and kind of observe, participate in her classes, and then teach a little bit as the year went on. And I remember I was there to watch her teach the first week of fall classes, and she was teaching from age 2 all the way up to age 14. And so she does various classes that week. And I remember after the first class, I was like, wow, she's so excellent with connecting with this age group and getting those kids excited. Like she nailed what motivates them, and they're like thrilled about starting the year. And then it happened in the next class with like a totally different age group. And then the next class. And I just saw that knowing what is going to get your students excited and like knowing their developmental stage, and that this level, this age is going to be like thrilled about making the lyrics of the song really silly with whatever they can think of. But this younger age is going to just be thrilled about throwing scarves, and that's going to be their moment where they just love what they're doing. And then like the teenagers, like she had a totally different approach, but she was like almost just like, I don't know, like yelling at them, making fun of them, like in very friendly ways, just to get them to get out of their like teenage slump, and like by the end of that class, those teenagers had walked in being like, oh my gosh, what did we sign up for, and we have homework. And then like they walked out of there being thrilled about their first homework assignment. And to me, that ability to motivate the students and understand what they need in order to feel excited and free and relaxed, I was just like, wow, that is a secret sauce that I don't have yet. And I want to have it, because from there, then like all your teaching techniques can flow. But like if you don't have the buy-in of the students, like no matter how great your teaching techniques are, I just realized like the buy-in is the first thing, and it's really about the relationship that you have with your students.
Yeah, I can I add a few more things
Please.
in- for that topic? I think in China, it's very interesting because I'm training the future music teachers, and they're gonna have a internship, in primary school. And when I arrive to a master degree, they're gonna have internship in the, middle school and also the high school. In China, we have the system like that, but it's K-12, it's 6 year, So I often, talk about the theory of Piaget to them. They really need to understand in which stage they're teaching. The ages of the students, really decides a lot of the way. And also I would like to say, as a doctoral teacher, we're lucky, because we're teaching doctorals, but also doctorals offers a way to re-educate us, to reform us, because we could be super open for different kind of situations. For example, now I had this, discussion with my Kodai colleagues, in my department, because they always were thinking that, okay, now we're going to do singing, for all levels, primary school and middle school, then high school. And then I tell them, because of the educational quality, very normal. Normally, when the students arrive to the high school area, that means the 3 years before went to college, they have so many things to do. And if they don't have a solid music training, which is normal, that normally that's the case, they won't be able to sing. So as a Kodai teacher, they don't have other tools, they just want them to sing. But I say that, don't do that, because when they arrive to that age, there's so many ways for them to express music. They could have some intellectual thinking about music. They could talk about music genres. They could do some movement. You have to be open to accept their reactions. You need to have a discussion with them. I think that's very important. I think doctorals offer us this openness, and we have to embrace it. If not, we're not to be working smoothly, crossing the different ages. Yeah, that's my sharing. Thanks
love it.
for running.
I think there's something common there with what Graham was saying early, which was this idea of being willing to, however you want to word it, either abandon the lesson plan or adjust the lesson plan or recognize, I'm thinking about my early training and Marta, she didn't say anything really. Marta Sanchez was my teacher and she just wasn't about the words. So she didn't really tell us a lot. She just taught and then we were just to pick it up. And she was amazing and changed my life and all of those great things. But I wasn't fed just like statements that helped me clarify. I had to really find it. And one of the ones that just wasn't said, but is so clear now, is that our lesson plans, definitely the way we're teaching it now at my school, our lesson plans are much more outlines and even beginnings. Like I'm about at the point now where I'm telling my students, my teaching training students, to stop writing the end of the lesson plan. That's a terrible idea. Have yourself a handful of good starters. And then as you're really figuring out this Dalcroze thing, I want to feel permission to let it go where the students are ready to go and be the creative in the room who can sort of see some options. So I'm saying it a little too strictly. By all means, have a whole lesson and have some good ideas about how it might end up. But I also want personally to feel great permission for it to veer. And I'll just tell one teeny little story, and then I think Lauren had a hand up. In my university teaching, I tell my TAs are sometimes in the room with me, and they're like asking me questions. What am I doing? And I say, well, I know I've had a pretty good day of teaching when the lesson plan that I brought to the room with me is full of scribbles. So I print them out, I type them up, and I print them out of a printer, and they show up, and it looks very organized. But the better my teaching was that day, the more things I write in on that piece of paper that was like, that isn't what I did at all. I did this other thing instead. And I have to write it down or I'm going to forget what I did. And I realize I'm drawing arrows. That's the wrong order. That's the wrong first thing. Oh, there's 3 steps between step 1 and 2. And I'm scribbling them in, which I don't discover until I'm with the students and I see how they're reacting and how are they paying attention and what did they need. And I think, I thought of that so clunky in my head at home. I was able to make it much more smooth here. So all of those things. So feeling permission and even some amount of mandate to let things evolve is another version, I think, of what it means to recognize our students where they are, rather than ignoring them and saying, I have to say all the words on this piece of paper. Lauren.
Wow, so many thoughts. I had 2 in particular I wanted to bring up, and one had to do with connecting with the students and recognizing like their humanity and that they're people and that sort of thing. I think so often we can go into the room, and this is me now, this is not me as a beginning teacher, even now, where I have to remind myself I am teaching people. And the more that I can teach people, the more that I can, yes, have my objectives and what's going to happen in the class. And so, as you mentioned, Stephen, that takes trust, but it also takes risk. And that was the biggest thing when I began teaching in this method that I was encouraged to do, is to take more risks because I was playing it safe. So that was one of them. And then the second had to do with just the mere metaphysical aspect of being a Dalcroze teacher, because you're constantly trying to think about what could happen next and how will I get to that moment, but not say it out loud. And I think that's the hardest part about starting to be a teacher too. When I was recently watching some videos of a level 3 student, so she's getting close to getting her certificate here, and watching the difference between 1 week and the next week. In the 1 week, she narrated everything that was about to happen. We're going to be in a circle, and then we're going to sit down, and then we're going to do this. And it was just to help her remember like where she was in the lesson plan versus just thinking that part in her head and moving on to the next thing. So I think that's a very difficult thing when you're first getting started in this method.
Very good.
Can you say more about the risk? What kinds of risks?
I think like improvisation comes into this a lot, maybe. Because as Stephen was saying, I could, for example, say, you're going to use one of these 3 gestures when you hear this thing. And that's a very decided thing, a very safe thing. Or it could be come up with your own gesture. It could be that maybe I play in a way that is a little bit more subtle so it can do with playing as well. I don't know. What do you all think? Do you have other ways that risk comes into? I'm curious.
Go ahead,
I
Aaron.
think, I think improvisation is exactly where where I'm thinking of those moments of risk in playing, when you give over the musical choice to the students, and suddenly the 3-year-old has the reins on your class, and maybe the game is somebody else is playing the xylophone until they play a drum, and then everything stops. And they've gotten it into their head that they're just going to wait for a long time. Or maybe they're playing a xylophone, and the game is start at the high C and finish at the bottom. Like start at the top of the scale and finish at the bottom. And they just start noodling. And they're very comfortable noodling. And you have to know, it's always different. There are different people in the room. There are different grown-ups in the room. There are different children in the room. Everybody is listening. So, or maybe they're not, and that affects the choice of what to do also. But I err on the side of, if this is our plan, let's wait for the music to see if the music will also help this student get to where they're going, instead of, because as soon as we're saying, okay, find an ending soon, make an ending, find a way to finish, it's gentle, but it's so tricky, but it's so exciting too.
I think that somewhere in that last statement is this idea that the music leads, and so, which I think is a really hard one to figure out how to let take control, especially as a young teacher or as a newer teacher. I think it's hard at all levels, but there's risk and there's trust and there's vision and there's a lot in there, where if you can find ways that the music itself is the thing that's initiating whatever it is that's going on, as opposed to me just telling everybody instructions or me just telling you what I want to happen. I think that is that's a great move, actually. I think of that, the difference between sort of brand new and haven't quite tried to practice that notion yet, and actually figuring out how to use the music to be the initiator, is a big move, and one that's really hard.
I think also too, just what Kai said about letting them not be as successful maybe at first, like seeing that they're maybe struggling a little bit and that's okay, as long as it's done in a spirit of but to play a new rhythm that they don't know how to move yet. I did this last week. It was the binary skipping rhythm, and they had done the compound meter version, but they could not figure out how to skip in this way. And I just kept playing, and somebody started to figure it out, and then we could follow them. But rather than to stop right away and say, here's how you skip, here's how you move this rhythm, that's being a little bit prescriptive. And sometimes we need to be prescriptive, but to allow something to play out to the point of discovering what the answer is.
I'm curious with Graham's kind of a linear, ordered progression of learning, if you have a new image of how you conceive of it now.
Gosh, that's a great question. I often, and it sounds really bad sometimes, but I often, I don't, for a lot of schools, I don't read a lot of music written down. Like I would never draw something up and especially at some like this one school that has no music program. I just feel like the learning curve would it's so that's just not even it's just not a right fit at all. And I talk about what it sounds like a lot more, and that is a huge change because I feel like for me, just learning about music, which is horrible. It always started on the page, and then like, all right, how do I get from this page to I was like a piano student, and I think that was the big change was disregarding what was on a page in front of me or something that I could draw up on the whiteboard and just talk about how it sounds. And I talk about more about quality of sound a lot more than reading music a lot of the times. And even with other with like at music schools, I often forego that because they get that in music theory classes or other places. So it's I think that was my big change.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that it's occurring to me now is a big difference between my earlier teaching and my more recent is just not always assuming that all the classes need the same goal. I think I grew up, I was first introduced to Dalcroze in the conservatory, where it was very obviously and very directly musicianship for musicians heading toward the grand stage. Like that was the thing. And that's what we were there. And we were there to be better performers. And there was like one direct line, and it was a pretty narrow set of repertoire. And that was it. And so as I was in my early classes, as I was doing that work with anybody, including the like 3-year-olds, that was the vision in my mind. Like, well, obviously as a 3-year-old, you're not about to do your senior recital, but these are the first steps toward that. And while they are or can be the first couple steps toward that, I'm not sure at all that image is what's most helpful for actually most of my students. Outside of even my university students, I'm not sure it's the best exact perfect model, but definitely when I was teaching in the high school for a million years, what we were really doing there were so many other things that were absolutely valuable, and music was a vehicle to help us learn, and then we could just go on a huge list of all the extra musical things that are learned in a classroom that involves motion and involves ensemble and involves improvisation and involves communication, and like there's just so many things that come out of that. And to downplay that in my early teaching, or to ignore it, or to not notice it is really what was going on. To not notice it so much, or to value, which meant I couldn't value it in those early classes. It's been just such a wonderful transition to realize, oh, actually, I'm allowed to make just ensemble like a major life lesson here. Like, just what's it mean to sort of be in the room with other people and be able to pay attention to them, and to actually feel what they feel, or to try to come together with someone. I mean, that's it's both a musicianship lesson, but it's also just a growing up good human lesson. And actually it's enough. Like I don't in all of my settings have to be teaching people to be like amazing sight readers as the one best skill that we're working toward, or what have you. So I feel like I was making a mistake early on by not giving value to all, to giving myself permission to be able to teach so many other elements of the work, instead thinking it had to be so narrow. We're getting down to time here. Who else has got, anybody else have something you want to jump in on? Go ahead, Quan Ting. We've been waiting.
I am fairly new to Dalcroze. Okay, 6 weeks at Carnegie Mellon. But I mean, I guess personally, like when you guys talk about, yes, music lead, and I guess I'm currently struggle with like how much chaos I would want to allow in my classroom. Because it's really, I have 20, 30 kids, and then it's just like, are they messing around, or they're just not getting the idea? Are they too excited, or they are just doesn't know what to do? And I guess that line, I'm still trying to find like a good, I don't know, like a happy common area for me and my student. It's, yeah. And also like just some activity I try to like teach them with the body and stuff. I mean, I think they are getting more and more buy-in, but then I can see them even after the class they are talking about it. But just during the class, during the process, I don't feel like they're enjoying as much. So I guess I just didn't read them as well. Anyway, I guess like my main thing is about this chaos. Like, how do I define my chaos in a room? Like just for me, like how much is chaos if they all start running when they are supposed to be marching? Like, I don't know. Just part of my struggle.
It is a
Would-
beautiful struggle, and I think I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, would any of the people who are currently working with some of the younger students want to chime in on that?
I think, I personally like a great deal of chaos in my classes. And the way that I can mark when it's positive chaos is when like just maybe three or a few times in a class I can like on a dime achieve absolute silence. And if I can like say something and like center everyone super duper quickly, then the chaos is okay, and I can actually like feed that fire even more, and just kind of I'm like, all right, let's see how this goes. Because if I can like wrangle them super quick, then I think that to me is a good amount of chaos.
I love the feed the fire.
I do. Oh my
I
god,
have
yeah,
maybe
I'm
a
like
different
insane.
approach
It's
than you.
I like yell at them. It's so fun. But yeah, I think like that magical like silence where like everyone is like really focused is kind of the mark for me.
That was actually very similar to the answer I was trying to make in my head, although my line wouldn't be absolute silence. I'm probably not that good as Graham to be able to command absolute silence from the youngins whenever I want it. But I was thinking I'd be quite happy with chaos, or am happy with chaos, if I know that nearly on a dime I can get them all to look at me, as opposed to I'm trying to get you to look at me, but you're just running circles around me and absolutely paying me no mind. So that I can tolerate a tremendous amount of silliness or craziness or chaos if I believe that with whatever the cue is, I can get them to arrest and come back to me. And then I can let them loose and bring them back and let them loose and bring them back. And if we can get that if we've rehearsed that back and forth, then the let them loose versions are totally fine. Because I know there's still some little bit of them that's still attending for whatever's the next cue or the next let's rein it in, as opposed to they wouldn't be able to find me at all if I tried to get them. And that is not easy, for all of us trying to figure out how to. But I do think for me anyway, it's kind of a rehearsing. We're trying to little by little rehearse the redirect. You can go ahead and be crazy, and then we're back. And so that back and forth is a big deal. Kai, you've unmuted twice. What do you got?
I think Aaron also after.
Because I want to say something, but I think Aaron is going to say it first. I'm waiting. I'm sorry.
I was just going to add just some of my early training with Ginny Latz in Boston. It was when I was training. It was the only time that I had a Dalcroze teacher and children like at the same time. And with respect to the chaos that happens, or the whatever it is that happens when you bring your activity and suddenly the 3-year-olds are, just being 3-year-olds, she would ask the question, is learning happening? And it wasn't about, are you teaching them something? Are they learning what you meant them to learn, or something like that? But it was partly in the moment. It was also, in retrospect of just looking back and dealing with a class. You've gotten to the end of the 45 minutes and, you're trying to figure out what to do next week maybe. And she would always ask, is learning happening? What kind of learning was happening? And it was just a great way of framing this experience that we all have. And I don't think it ever goes away. Because there is always this give and take, and there's always this potential chaos out of which all of this flexibility that we've been talking about comes out, and all of this stuff. And it was just a great way to, give a little bit of contour to like when chaos happens, you don't have to decide, oh, everything is like messed up and I have to try again next time. It's like that's the wrong response, but it was nice for her to show us this way to go forward through that and to embrace it.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Is learning happening? I want Kat to talk because we're getting close to time, but then I maybe have a follow up there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's not a problem, you know, if the students have this kind of chaos, you know, because in China, in the primary school, it's always that happens quite often. So I told my students there are at least two to five students in each class you're gonna teach will be out of the zone, you know, all the time. So because it's quite normal, you know, they're not get paid or being there, just learn music professionally, you know, try to get relieved on that. That's the first thing I would like to share. And the second thing is that we have to observe, is the energy being positively in the class or negatively? And that's also very important. Sometimes if the students, they're really excited when they listen to music, but they cannot control themselves, that means the energy is positive. That means there's a way you could sort of, you know, get it back. But if the active listening is not happening, that comes back to our way of organizing the lesson plan or the articulations we make. I always tell my students, if we teach the younger kids, we have to have contrast rhythm in the lesson. In the way you talk, you need to use different kinds of dynamic, slow and fast, because the cells on their brain, you know, for the younger kids are stretching. That's why sometimes they cannot be stable. You know, it's very normal, you know. And also, I think, Quentin, maybe we can create some contrast moment to lead to inhibition and incitation. Very often the chaos, because of the students are very incitated, you know, they cannot inhibit themselves. So I think, you know, for example, in the end of the lesson, everybody lies on the floor, you know, really quiet, and, you know, start with that. Or maybe you can start lesson with a completely chaos. Just let the students, you know, pour off their energy. Then you start to give some inhibitions, you know, in your lesson planning, you know. So that will be fun, you know, and choose different kind of contrasting music, you know, try to stimulating active listening. I think if that's happened, maybe just for 1 or 2 times in the lesson, that means, you know, you get things in control, you know. That's how I want to share. Yeah.
It's wonderful. I was thinking about Aaron saying, "Is learning happening?" And then tying that to our earlier conversation of as you know, trusting the students. I need to trust, and I'll maybe encourage all my good young teacher friends and all just that very likely learning is happening. It's just not always happening in the thing that I wish I wanted it to happen on, you know, at this exact moment. And learning how to trust in that that the students are receiving what they're ready to receive. And just because I was ready to move to the next thing doesn't mean that they were. And so I bet anybody who spent any decent amount of time in the classroom has stories of you didn't think a student was paying attention, and then you come to find out they actually heard every word that you said, or you didn't think a student, you know, was you know, following along, and then you realize they know all the words of the song, even though they didn't sing a single one, and they didn't pay it, you know, they didn't look your direction, they didn't like. We don't actually always know how everything's being received, and so just trusting in some of the process that the work is good and that the students are, you know, are there is a big deal. We've got 4 minutes.
I had another thought.
Yay! Go, Lauren.
Has to do with matching our energy or choosing the opposite energy of our students, because it's so crazy how week to week it can be like polar opposite. And I think Graham knows which students I'm talking about because we teach some of the similar students. But also just like a class that I have that has 4 and 5-year-olds in it. If they come in and they have a lot of energy, do I choose something that uses that energy, which creates more chaos? Or do I maybe choose something that challenges their inhibition? but uses rest to challenge their inhibition. So, for example, they lay on the floor, but if my music becomes strong, then they wake up and they shush me, and then they lay back down. And how doing that allows them to get out some energy, but in a calm way. And then they're maybe ready to listen to me and take some of that chaos and put it somewhere else. But only if I remember to treat them like humans and recognize when they come in where they are, so that I'm not like, we're going to do this today. And then when it doesn't go well, it's because I wasn't matching where they were.
Yeah, there are two gold nuggets in there for anybody who's listening that maybe isn't really part of all of these traditions. The one is how in that exercise of they're laying down and then I play in a way that lets them get up and shush. I mean, we could just talk about that exercise for like the next 20 minutes, first of all. It's such like, there's such great stuff in there. But one of the things that has to do with the classroom management side of this is that they know where to return. And so there's all sorts of amazing things also in there that the students get to lead and the students get to be crazy and the students get to smile and students get to, you know, be the adults and the students. I mean, there's so much good in there. But the classroom management gold in that is that they started from a position of rest or of calm or of paying attention, and then the action takes them out of that, but then the result of the action is they return. And so that returning home, there's lots and lots of games. In fact, I think of basically all early games are all versions of you know where your home is, you go away from home, you come back to home. And so like there's 400 different variations on that, and that's a beautiful one right there. And then this idea of matching energy, or just even being aware, like trying to be aware of that as a variable that you have control over as the teacher, is a big deal. And it's not just control over theirs, it's control over your own, is the genius that Lauren's describing there. Is that I wish they were acting differently, how am I acting? Is really so often one of the things that we have control over, that can affect and will affect the way that they're treating us, or that they're picking up on cues. I think that's a great place to end, with genius from Lauren Hodgson. Hey everybody, it's such a joy to have you all here. To our friends who are watching after the fact and watching the recording, please do what you can to come to the next one live, and we love that you're watching the recording. I was just looking at the stats of our archives, and man, people watch these videos. It's really fun, actually, how many hits they get. To everybody, to Aaron and Lauren and Catherine and Quan Ting, thank you so much to Kai and to Graham for being here. We love that you all agreed to share with us a little bit of your practice. And to my dear friend Veronica, thanks for doing this. Everybody,
Thank you, everybody. Good
we'll
to
see you.
all.
We'll see you soon for
We also-
meetup number 71. Get ready.
No, this was 71. I made a typo.
Oh no,
72.
this is 71. We're all the way up to 72. My goodness. Okay.
Yeah, they're great. And thank you all. Thank you, Stephen.
So thank you all.
Bye.
Bye. Great to see
Bye,
you.
friends.